She went to they live in North Carolina in the same city in Raleigh. She went, I could hear them like talking to the EMTs and all this stuff. And the EMTs thought was just his blood sugar was low, but he still wasn't waking up. And so I asked my sister, I said, is it really that? Should I book a flight? Should I come home? She was, yeah. So I flew out that night.
It's the Fit for Radio podcast, and I'm your host, Drew Titeman. We are at the Stafford Hills Club, my comfort zone, and I was just looking at some pictures. We are coming up on pool season, and that's when the outdoor saltwater pool here transforms into quite the little party palace. So if you want to get dialed in, join the family over here. My whole family comes here. My kid is downstairs in the kids club as we speak. Don't worry, my wife's here too. I didn't just ditch her to go to work, but all the amenities can be yours too at staffordhills.com. Tell them I sent you, get half off your initiation. I've got a great guest in here today, actually a guy who has brought me multiple guests in the first place. And finally I said, the more I learn about you and your story, you seem to be a perfect guest for the show as well. So without further ado, he is a criminal defense attorney, which I would love to sit down and pick his brain about that at some point. But really, today is about his journey in not just running, but triathlons, Ironmans, and the reality that the whole thing is just not that easy. And also a man driven to do bigger things and something big coming up recently, or actually in the near future. Welcome to the show, Rob Crow.
Hey, Drew.
How are you, buddy? Now, I'm excited to have you in here. Now, I got kind of introduced to your running. Our kids play on a soccer team together.
Right.
And, there was rumblings. We were out at some soccer field a ways away, and someone looks over at me and is like, yeah, Rob ran here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I drove 10 miles on a freeway to get here. It took me 45 minutes.
Right.
What are we talking about? And so that kind of, perked my ears up a little bit. You've got a long history of running. Where did all this begin for you?
Well, I mean, as a kid, I was not big, so I had horrible depth perception, so I couldn't catch a baseball. I couldn't catch a football, and I was tiny, so maybe could kick. I got into running and then, found a passion in that. Was decent at it. It wasn't great.
Did you run in high school? Were you on the organized teams? Were you cross country? What was the look there?
I mean, I liked soccer.
Yeah.
I grew up in Virginia, in the southern part, Southwest Virginia. That's the South. And nobody cares about cross country. Nobody cares about running. Soccer, nobody really cared about either, but a little bit.
A little bit more.
Right. And, you have that tangible, score a goal, make a basket in basketball, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You have that in running. But I did find in life now, there is some relief, some kind of catharsis to running. And I always enjoyed that. And then I grew up way out in the country, so it's pretty, in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. So we lived halfway down a mountain from the college where my dad taught. So running up the roads and then running with the dog.
So it was just kind of part of the operation early on for you.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I knew you liked soccer because actually before our kids were on the same team, you were coaching the other team as we were playing against them. So I knew you had a little bit of, you had a sports itch at least. Now, when you're in school, though, you said you weren't so great at running. You were just kind of middle of the pack, or?
Yeah, I mean, where I grew up in Virginia, I was one of the, it was cross country. You had 7 people, the top 5 count. And I was that, 1, 2, when I was a senior. In Oregon, I would have been 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have been towards the back. Again, it wasn't as big of a thing in Virginia, but it was decent enough at it. But yeah, I mean, basketball, I didn't make the middle school basketball team, and I wasn't Michael Jordan. So it wasn't like I was going to make anything beyond that.
Yeah. And I'll be right there with you. Growing up, not the biggest guy, played soccer. Any attempt to play basketball was just immediately driven to the B team. This is hilarious, Rob. I one time made the A team tryout in junior high. I think it was a mistake. Because, first day everyone's together. Second day, they take everyone for A team tryouts to a different gym.
Right.
And I get invited to the second gym and I'm thinking, I think I'm turning the corner here. I showed up and 5 minutes in, I was getting wrecked 10 minutes in, I was sent back to the second gym.
Right.
So I feel you, I say it often. And, I've had multiple people on here who do incredible things who agree with this. I believe I was born painfully average.
Right.
Like there's nothing extraordinary about me. And I think a lot of people who do great things, it comes down to not natural ability. It comes down to drive and desire and fight
Right.
and, that type of grit. And I feel like you kind of get into some of that because you take that ability to run and you kind of parlay it into doing triathlons and all that. How do you go from being a guy who likes to jog to wanting to do a triathlon?
Well, when I was in college, I would run. Again, another kind of humbling moment. I went to UVA undergraduate, and I reached out to the track coach. I was like, "Hey, I can make the team run track." And he told me, "Well, I have girls that run faster than you do," which
Mm,
was absolutely true.
yeah.
At 18 years old, it hurts, but it was absolutely true.
The numbers don't lie.
Right. But so I lived in campus housing my second year, and there was a girl lived right next to me. It was on the crew team. But we would run together some and had a lot of fun. We were similar pace. And then she did a triathlon with Team in Training, cancer fundraiser. And I thought, well, I can do that. I mean, I know how to ride a bike. That's easy enough, no problem.
Hmm.
It was a problem. It wasn't nearly that easy, but I mean, it was something different. It was fun.
Yeah, because a bike ride and a triathlon bike ride are two different beasts, right?
Right.
Like, so in a standard triathlon compared to an Ironman, which we'll get to, how long are you on a bike for?
Well, the first one I did was they call it Olympic distance. And so they do it in kilometers. It's 40
Okay.
kilometers, which is, I think, 24.8 roughly miles.
Yeah, because 10 kilometers is 6.2 miles.
Right.
That makes sense.
And I don't do, I tell people if I could do math, I'd have been a doctor. As a lawyer, I don't do math usually.
Fair enough.
Add prison months doing criminal law, but other than that, I
Yeah,
don't do
exactly.
math.
How many months are they in jail?
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's almost 25 miles, so it's longer than it was humbling when I first started out and growing up in a mountainy area. It was like, God, we've done like 3 miles and I'm kind of tired.
Hmm.
I'm not anywhere near what I'm going to have to do.
Yeah.
So the biking was, but the running or the swimming was really the one that hit me because I knew how to swim, but not well.
Yeah. I
And
think most of us
yeah,
aren't as good as swimmers as we would like to be. When I swim with my kids now, I took the lessons as a kid, but find myself like falling into a side stroke
yeah.
almost too often. And it just shows that most of us don't have the true technique and the breathing down to where you're going to flow.
And that's the thing with swimming, I think, is it's the technique. This is skipping way ahead, but I was doing a swim group one time, and there was a guy who was an awesome swimmer, but hadn't swum in like a year. But because his technique was so dialed in and so good, he was faster than everybody else, even though he wasn't really trained.
Hmm.
But his technique was down. But yeah, my first race, I jumped in the water and in a lake that I knew well where I grew up. It was a river that is dammed up, so I knew it was deep.
Yeah.
And there were no lane lines at the bottom of this lake. I was used to that in the pool, and I
And
freaked
being able
out.
to guide that
Oh,
way.
I was all over the place. So I feel like I doggy paddled for
Rob, you're
most of
going
this.
backwards.
Yeah. Or it's bad when you're swimming and then suddenly there's a boat or there's somebody,
Yeah.
now they have everybody on like the ski doos or on
Hmm.
stand-up paddle boards, and they're like, "Go that way."
Guiding you.
Right. And so, like, I'm way off course. But yeah, I think I doggy paddled. My first so a swim is 1.5 kilometers. It's like 0.96 miles,
Hmm.
and it took me almost an hour.
Because it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're swimming, especially once you've blown the technique
Right.
and you go to the doggy paddle, I mean, get in the middle of a pool and doggy paddle to the edge, it takes a bit.
Right.
And to cross a lake that way,
Yeah.
were you just exhausted when you got out?
I
Or
was. I was so and the thing is you don't think about I don't you don't use your feet. You don't kick a lot. You're
Mhm.
using your legs when you swim in a triathlon, but I was just jellied. Like, I had legs, it hurt to get out and go.
And now you've still gotta ride the bike and run.
Right, right.
That's amazing. So you obviously you make it out of the water. Do you complete that triathlon?
I did. I don't know that I officially should have finished. It wasn't like a big race series.
Where they were the judges and the whole
Right.
deal. It was like, get there and be done.
Right, right. Because I forgot to put my race number on for the run. And so you have like a race
Yeah.
belt, and I forgot to put it on. So I didn't have any number. And now in races they mark you with a Sharpie, your number and stuff. I didn't have any of that. So they
Like,
still
who's this random guy?
right, they counted it. I mean, obviously they said this poor schmuck is struggling. He must be doing it.
Yeah.
But they counted my finish, and so I made it. But yeah, that was a humbling experience. That it was
So
way
it's
harder than I expected.
so that's all a learning experience where, you probably here's the question actually associated to the swimming. What do you do to improve on that for the next time? Are you relying on hopefully there will be lane lines, or did you figure out a way to keep yourself from doggy paddling in the future?
Well, you gotta practice in the open water, so I did that a little more than just, once.
Mhm.
And I actually took a swim class at UVA. I needed a credit and it fit in my schedule, and so learning some technique helped a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like, your head's not up the whole time or your body just sinks, and so learning that helped a lot.
Mhm.
I mean, really, it was later, probably, gosh, I don't know how, 10 years later, when I trained with a group with a woman that actually was a coach, a swim coach, and learned technique that I really improved or was less bad.
Mhm.
But yeah, starting out, there's so many different things you have to take into account, and the fact that you're not going to swim straight. Well, a guy kind of helped me coach me, and he would say, in the pool, every once in a while, I want you to close your eyes and swim a lap
Oh, wow.
because you hit lane lines, you realize I'm not swimming straight.
I feel like I'd get turned upside down with that. It's like, when somebody says, "Do a cartwheel in a hallway," because it's like you're thinking about something else,
Right.
you're gonna hit the wall every time. I feel like if the first time you told me to swim with my eyes closed, I would hit the sidewall, not
Right.
the end wall.
Right. And if the lane lines hurt, the ropes that have the plastic, and so I hit
Mhm.
it a few times. And this sucks. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, you also kinda had to get used to riding a bike with the clipless pedals, right? Didn't you have a moment where at some point, I don't know if this is before or after that triathlon, it's gotta be after 'cause do you ride with clips in that triathlon?
I don't remember. I don't think I did.
So, you eventually do try those out and you go for a ride by the, Lincoln Memorial. What happened there?
Yeah, I was in DC right with his friend, and we were riding along, and we get to right by the Lincoln Memorial. There's a big circle, traffic circle,
Yeah.
and I didn't quite clip out and just
Mm.
toppled. I mean, I think every probably biker who uses clipless pedals experienced this at some point, but I fell over on the sidewalk. Years later, we practiced falling in a field so that you don't put your arm down,
Yeah,
which was helpful for me,
later on.
later on when I wrecked. But yeah, I just toppled right over, and
People are like, "What's this guy
it
doing?"
was humbling, right? Yeah, not only am I not fast, or the girls faster than I am, but I can't even stand up on a bike.
If it makes you feel any better, the first time I clipped into those was on a Peloton, not even you couldn't fall left or right,
Right.
but nobody told me that I needed to let the pedals slow themselves down, so, like, I think I basically was a half inch away from blowing my left knee out because I tried to stop a weighted wheel, and, so I almost wrecked on a stationary bike,
Right.
Rob, so at least you got that. The only difference is there was no one there to laugh at me. You were by the Lincoln
Yeah,
Memorial,
there are a lot
I'm
of people.
sure, and luckily for you, it's probably not at a time where everybody is doing a selfie video all the time,
No
so
selfies back then for sure. Yeah.
'cause you don't need a B team YouTube showing up of you
Right.
laying there, "Help!"
Yeah, everybody's laughing at this guy falling over.
But these are growing pains for you, right? And you don't allow this to let you quit. You refuse to quit. You keep on going on. Now, uh, what's your thought process here? Why do you wanna take it to the next level?
I don't know. There there's a community to it that I didn't learn until I got to Birmingham when I was in law school.
Mhm.
But just people that wanna do it, and one of the things I found with triathlon is, I think for the most part, people just wanna do it. Even the really long races, even the fast people, it's, "Hey, you did it. That's great. Having fun with it." Not so intense that you see with, like, running, I think even, or some other sports, football, basketball, different things. It feels like more of a community.
Mhm.
And I didn't much enjoy law school. I didn't have a lot of friends there who had some friends, but I didn't hang out with people regularly. I was very kinda different. I grew up a little more liberal in Virginia, as you might expect. The Southern Baptist Law School, not the most liberal.
Yeah.
So I found this community with triathlon with people that weren't part of that,
Mhm.
and I really enjoyed that. And then you could s I think with anything, when you start out or you're learning, the improvements, the scale just so fast. You improve, you notice it. Much later, improvements take a lot longer to really recognize, and they're much slower. But there, just in the pool, I realized, God, I'm getting faster and it's getting better, or I'm feeling fit.
Mhm.
Or people, a short triathlon doesn't take but 2, 3 hours. It's like people are in all of that. It's not that. not that big of a deal. Like, most people could do it, I think.
I think people are scared off by daunting ideas.
Right,
And I talk about this all the time. It's the failure to launch. It's the, oh, I can't do that. And so I don't do that. And a triathlon, it's a big name on it. Same thing with an Ironman. It's like, oh, I don't know. It's just that it just seems daunting. So I'm just not gonna.
right,
And you said this to me when I saw you run from Delta Park, which is I think it's 15 miles on a freeway from where we live. You live
right,
near where I live, and you ran home. And you said to me before you go something along the lines of, the toughest step is the first step. And
right,
it's just once you start, it's fine, but it's like, do I want to do this?
right,
And even for a guy who's done a bunch of this stuff, you know that, and you still have to convince yourself. It's the same thing with me. Every day I wake up and do the same regimen, do
right,
my push-ups in the Peloton. You're human. Your mind's like, "Nah,
right,
nah," but you kinda have to be like, "No, start." And then once you start, you're like, "Well, of course I do that."
right.
And that wasn't so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of a handful of workouts where, gosh, I wish I hadn't done that. And those are
Mhm,
ones like when I wrecked the bike years later.
mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it is the I don't know who first said it, but they said the hardest 2 steps are the first 2 out the door. And that was, yeah, going from Delta Park, obviously not on the interstate. The run was not much longer because you can follow
Cut through.
interstate, I think, is the road. It hits Denver, and then I mean, that's the part of the fun part for me running and going different places. You can go on vacation and you go for a run. You don't have to take your bike. You don't have
Mhm.
to take your Peloton. You don't have to take your weights, and you can experience new things that and I have a hard time just sitting around. My wife complains when we go if we go on vacation to, like, the beach, everybody wants to lay out on the beach. I can't do that. I'll go nuts.
Yeah, you gotta do something.
Right, and you learn lessons that way. We went to Jamaica for a friend's wedding, and I ran off of actually, it was ran off of the all-inclusive resort some, and you see parts of Jamaica you don't otherwise see,
Mhm.
and I went down the beach some, and I had some police officers stop me and go like, "Go back."
Yeah, you're going in the wrong
Yeah,
spot.
don't leave your that one little all-inclusive area, go back.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Mexico's the same way. You get 2, 3 streets off of the main drag, and it's a little sketchy.
right, but you don't experience a lot of that stuff. You don't do it unless you go out and
You
try
gotta leave
something
the
new.
walls of the resort
Right,
to actually be able to be a part of that. I think, I'm a guy who I do like to hang at the beach, and I can sit there for a while, but I have to go do my stuff before I can allow any of that to happen.
right,
And I'm on vacation, and I'm still like, "No, no, 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 no. This is gonna be sideways." And Amy's like, "Get your swim trunks on and stop."
right,
But I have to before like send them to breakfast, and I'll go to the little whatever sweaty little gym the
right.
the thing has, which are a lot of those are quite third world. Now you as you're kind of like going along, you do shift at a point, and I want to talk about what makes you decide to do Ironmans. Now, I had another guy on who's done a bunch of Ironmans, and he explained to me that most of the Ironman factor are just longer distances
Right.
across the three disciplines. Is that
You're right,
correct?
exactly.
So, when you decide to do an Ironman, I thought it was pretty funny that, to finish this Ironman that you went and did, you have to finish in 16 hours. Is that
17 hours.
17
Right,
hours? So you have to beat that cutoff or it doesn't count.
right.
So, what was that like for you, and how was it different from doing a triathlon? Because, like you were saying before, someone like me is like, okay, well, maybe it's not that different, but seems to be quite a bit
Right.
different.
Well, it's again, it's the saying, or I've had a friend say, it's not about who's fastest, it's who slows down the least. Because
Mhm.
you can't sprint that distance. You can't go that hard, that long. I think I got into it when I was in Alabama. One of the guys that I got to be friends with had done an Ironman, and everybody down there does Ironman Florida, which is one of the faster. It's pretty flat. It's one of the faster Ironman races. But again, as part of the community, giving me something to train for. When I moved to Oregon, I didn't know anybody,
Mhm.
and so it was something to do. And I don't know, it was just yeah, it was different. It was like, "Oh, let's see if I can do this challenge of this long event."
Yeah, and if you finish an Ironman, people are very proud of like completing a marathon, and if I did, I would be very proud of it too. And they've got the sticker on the back of the car and everything. But I feel like when you are an Ironman, it's totally different. And with all due respect to the military, but it's almost like once you're a Marine. you're a Marine,
Right.
and like when you're an Ironman, you're forever an Ironman. And, to some people might argue, why does that matter? Why does it not? As someone who enjoys physical fitness and I have respect for the struggle, to me, it's pretty amazing. And I can see why somebody would want to chase such a
Right.
thing. Was that something that you wanted that title, or did you just want to see if you could test yourself on that level?
Yeah, I mainly wanted to see if I could, test yourself and see if you can go that, to go that far, do that long of a race. And, when I was getting into a lot of this stuff, I was still young and dumb and thought I can do anything.
Mhm.
Learn the hard way, riding a bike, falling over, or no lane lines in the pool, or things like that. But the first Ironman I did, I was so unprepared. I thought this was going to be, I knew it was going to be hard, but not that hard.
But isn't that kind of what is beautiful about it is if you knew, then maybe you're deterred.
Right.
But it's almost that the young dumb inside of us sometimes works out.
Right. Exactly.
And it's I'll think about something afterwards and go, I probably would not have done that if I knew how tough it was, but I'm so glad I accomplished it.
Right.
And so that's kind of where you get. And I want to break down your first Ironman because it's got all the ups, the downs, and the sideways, and even an 82-year-old nun in the story. You're listening to the Fit for Radio podcast, brought to you by the Stafford Hills Club. It's a place, let's be honest, you gotta check it out. Of course, it's the premier indoor-outdoor tennis facility where you can take lessons, you can play with your friends, tournaments, all kinds of stuff. Also, saltwater pool, an amazing kids club with a group of people who take care of my wild kids, and that's saying a lot all by itself. So check it out, staffordhills.com. All the amenities, you're not going to be disappointed. Voted the best health and wellness facility in the Portland area. And of course, tell them Drew sent you for half off your initiation at the Stafford Hills Club. What do you run into when you get there?
Well, they used to be, they would start everybody all at once.
The men and the women?
Right. So there were roughly 2,000 people in that Ironman.
Okay.
And, you're there at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you walk up and, they're marking you with these Sharpies, and the intensity, you can feel it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just palpable in the air. And you get down, and I realized, I'm not going to win this. I'm not going to be the fastest guy. And it's terrifying when it's like a washing machine with all those people swimming around. And
Oh, yeah.
I hung back. I mean, I think some people had swum 100 meters before I got in the water. And in the Coeur d'Alene, it was 2 laps. So you think, oh, I'm halfway. And you realize, oh, no, I'm only a quarter of a way. And
Oh,
you have to come out. You have to actually get out of the water and run around a cone and go back in, which is just torture. You're like, I'm out. My legs are tired.
and then you're back
Go right
in.
back in. They're pushing you back in. Well, they're not literally pushing you
Yeah,
back
but
in.
directing you.
Go right back in. And so that was a learning experience. That was tough. I actually got out of the water, I think, a little faster than I was expecting, or less slow than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. Less
Um,
doggy paddling
yeah,
these days.
exactly. So it wasn't a ton slower than my 1.5 kilometer, 0.96 mile swim, the first race. I
Yeah.
do a 2.4 mile swim. But then you get on the bike and you're going, and it's like, oh, great. And like, I'm getting close. And it's like a water stop at mile 10. And like, I got to go 112 miles.
So a question about that. It's hard to train for that type of distance, especially when you have a family or you've got a full-time job and you're not just a professional athlete
Right.
who can go haul off and do 100 miles on the bike all the time. How did you even get yourself to where you figured you could do that?
Well, at the time, I didn't have a family and kids, so I had more
So
time.
you had that going.
Right. And in college, when I was younger, I would ride the bike on a trainer inside and watch basketball games. So I got to be couldn't play, but I liked watching basketball.
Yeah, of course.
And so then once I was getting into longer races, I discovered NBA games last longer than college games.
Mhm.
So I could get in a longer ride watching an NBA game. But that's an easy. I watched Training for an Ironman. I watched Narcos, the whole series of
Okay.
Narcos Mexico. So it's like you can get into stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's hard when once you have a family, you have to run home from Delta Park to get timing to ride.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, is only when you are alone in the mean streets of Portland do you get a little bit of time to yourself,
Right, right.
which is smart. So you're in this race. You get on the bike. Your legs are already kind of like gelatin. Are you thinking, you know, the mind is an incredible thing, but it's also dangerous. Is there any time while you're riding this bike that you're starting to think that this might be a no go?
I mean, there were definitely times when I'm like, "This is a lot harder than I was expecting,"
Hmm.
or "Do I really wanna do this?" But I think what has helped as I've progressed and done more races is breaking it down instead of saying, "Oh, first aid station, mile 10, I got 112, 102 miles left to go." Breaking it up, "Okay, this is halfway through this loop," or whatever, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. With a marathon, it's breaking it down to it's a 10 miler, a 10 miler, and a 10K rather than, "Gosh, I've got, 18 miles left to go."
Yeah. And I think keeping the blinders on a little bit, that
Right.
this is what's right in front of me. It's the same thing with anything where you're trying to break a record or get a good time. You can't think way down the line because it might get too daunting.
Right, right.
So do you make it through there? At what point are you kind of like keeping an eye on the clock? Because if you finish anyway, in your mind you still did it,
Right.
but there's something about official time and being in the book as someone who completed the Ironman. How does this thing kind of turn out?
Yeah, so usually the race starts at 7 a.m., or it used to be, and so you have until midnight. It kinda starts to become real, I think, "Oh, hey, I've got a clock," when they give you the light up kind of, necklace type things. It's like, "It's late, we want people to be able to see you," so we have these, the neon.
Yeah, so you can glow.
Right, so that's one of the moments that really hits you that, "Oh gosh," there's a clock going. Or
Hmm.
one time my watch died, and
Oh
so I
no.
knew, "Oh gosh," I
It's
knew I
been
was
enough
close,
time
but
where I'm
yeah,
out. My clock,
right,
my watch has died, so it's been a bit. So you get into the running portion, which I've already said, running is your jam.
right.
So when you've done that long swim, you've over 100, how over 100 kilometers did you say? How long is the bike?
112 miles.
112 miles.
Right.
So when you get done with that, how much of your running skill is left and how much are you running on just mentals?
And I feel like most of it's mental. I mean, I've heard it said, I think it's true. My first Ironman, I had never done a marathon. And so now having done a marathon, the first few miles, 5, 10 miles, you don't feel your legs. And so you don't notice it as much. And so
Mhm.
you're going a lot more on adrenaline. I think being a runner in that race especially didn't make a lot of difference because I did a lot of walking. My marathon was, I think, 6 hours and something. It was slow.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a lot of adrenaline. Having the muscle memory and all that stuff definitely helps. But being a runner then didn't I didn't for me, didn't make a lot of difference because I was already slow.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you watch the Iron Man stuff on TV and Kona and the whole Hawaii thing, and you're looking at the pro athletes on TV who never walk.
Right.
And, but that's also a very smart move to rather than give up, just to stop running for a bit, gain your momentum back, and then take off again. So there's a game plan kind of
Right.
there, like not to let yourself get too gassed. How did you work that out?
Well, a lot of people, I was walking a lot, but for a lot of people, it's you run and then walk the aid station. Yeah, you don't want once you completely stop, it's a lot harder to get going again.
Mhm.
But if you at least walk the aid stations, you're giving yourself a little reprieve, and then back at running, if you or jogging or whatever you choose to
Trotting,
do.
whatever you've got left.
Exactly.
So what happens at the end of the race? You're running low on clock. It's dark. What where are you at? How do you finish?
Well, so there's Mike Riley was there are a few of the voices of Iron Man. I mean, the guy has so much energy bouncing off of the wall, flat like a towel, waving it around. He's the one that yells, "Whatever your name, you are an Iron Man." And so but the last hour, because everybody knows if you don't finish by midnight, it doesn't count. So many people come back out. Like if you finish
Oh,
in 13, 14 hours, there are people there cheering. But it's everybody at the end when they're looking at their watches and they're like, "You got like 2 minutes and you got 100 meters to go. Go, go."
let's go. You're kind of trying to motivate.
Right. So you could hear the finish line. This was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I could hear the finish line from a mile away.
Wow.
And it's like, okay, now you've got that energy back. It was
Mhm.
also like a high school or a college fraternity and guys were a keg drinking beer. And I was like, that seems really tasty.
I got to
What a
get done
bad
here.
idea. But yeah, that last, I think they're probably quarter of a mile, third of a mile is a somewhat downhill, not steep, but downhill grade Main Street, and I think it's Sherman Avenue.
So if you don't fall down, that helps a little.
Right, right, or you can roll. I mean, you just have to finish. You see people crawl or just stagger
Yeah.
across, but yeah, everybody comes back out. So the energy is amazing in that last hour, and I think it was 16 hours and 12 minutes. So it was, 11, 12 at night when
Mhm.
I'm coming through, but it got especially loud when I was coming through that made me feel special.
Yeah,
And
you
I
like you're having your moment.
Yeah, and then I told you I realized that none of that was for me. There's a guy who's really well known, famous in Idaho, at least, Coeur d'Alene. He wears full fireman gear on the run, and this dude was ahead of me. I'm like, "This is really humbling."
Yeah.
And then it got even louder, and there's a late Sister Madonna who was 82 years old at the time, and she'd done 20 some, 30, I don't know how many Ironman races,
And she finishes right where you're at?
about where I was,
That's
and
incredible.
but so the nice thing, at least in that kind of a race, is that since everybody started at the same time, you knew, okay, it's not like she started later than me and she's faster than I am.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's Sister Madonna at 82 years old was going through and finishing about the same time I did.
That's it's wild that somebody can do that, and it speaks volumes to the fact that when someone's like, "Oh, I'm too old for that," that's about enough of that.
Right.
You gotta if you use it or lose it, and I'm guessing that she, had a long history of using it. So you finish that Ironman, and is that when you complete that, is that the type of thing where you're hungry immediately for more, or are you like, "That I've checked that box." What's, like, the normal human reaction to that?
I know for me, it was, well, I know I can improve. I couldn't get a lot worse. I had 38 minutes or whatever it was,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't have been a finisher. So it was partly that, but you have so much adrenaline just having finished, that you're like, yeah, I could have done that better, or that was exciting. I want to do it. And there's that little bit, I guess part of it is, what's wrong with you? Why would you want to do that again when
Mhm.
it hurts to walk and you're chafing, you've got whatever else going. But yeah, there's something, once you're into it, I think where it is, I could improve, or the rush of that.
Yeah.
It's for a lot, it's like doing drugs, it's like, oh, all the excitement, the adrenaline going, the endorphins. And it's like, all right, you got to do
Mhm.
that again.
Yeah, I totally get it, and it's also one of those deals, like, when I tried to break the world record for push-ups in an hour, you finish, and you immediately start thinking about what could I have done better,
Right.
but while you're hurting, like, in those even in the hour afterwards, you normally get sore, like, days later. You do intense things like an Ironman or that push-up thing, and you immediately feel soreness, and you're like, "Uh-oh,
Right.
this is gonna be a problem," but people are asking, "When are you gonna do it again? I think you could do this," and there's a part of you that knows that you probably could, but it is daunting to do it again, so it takes a special type of person to be like, "Alright, that hurt, let's go again."
Well, in Ironman, I mean, a lot of races, but Ironman is a big name. They have it figured out in a number of ways to monetize it. The sign up for the race, some of the races sell or used to sell out. If you did the race, you sign up the next day, you can get in, or you
Ah,
volunteer. Like I signed up then to volunteer for Ironman Canada so that I could get first to register because that one sells out. So they realized the next morning, the endorphins, everything's
you
still going.
still get everyone
Now
on board.
right, or they have finishers gear at their tent. Everybody lines up and spends hundreds of dollars they would otherwise know better than to do,
Yeah,
but that everything's still, like, you're still jacked up and excited. So, of course, you do all that stuff that in your better mind, you would have been like,
not a chance, but
"Yeah,
while you're there and it's the FOMO, it's like, well, registration's gonna fill, you're right here, you can do this, you already
right,
showed, and everyone else is signing up, so brilliant little, piece of positioning out of them to
right."
keep the meter going.
So the next year was interesting. It signed up, I had some friends from Portland that went and did Coeur d'Alene, and then we were gonna do Canada the next year, Ironman Canada,
Mhm.
and we signed up and then learned, um well, so the not well, I guess we volunteered that summer, at the Ironman Canada because if you volunteer, you get to sign up first. So that's all still going, we sign up. I actually tore my ACL right after that playing soccer,
Oh,
learning that I wasn't as young as I used to be. So training for an Ironman also included rehabbing a torn ACL.
which is no joke.
No, no, it wasn't. That was hard. I mean, that was recovering from that and rehab. I'm convinced the physical therapist wanted to make me cry
Mhm.
with all the stuff he's done, but I ended up, I think, being stronger, at least lower body, than I'd ever been.
which is
after
lucky
finishing rehab. Yeah.
because that can go two ways. My wife tore ACL, MCL, and meniscus, and we had to have the surgery twice, and it snap, crackles, and pops on her
Oh, yeah.
to this day. But who knows how bad it would be without the surgery. But it's good to hear that you got stronger because you hear these stories where, we're not trying to make you who you were. We're trying to make
Right.
you stronger. And you felt that?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I thought, because I never did a lot of weights. It's interesting. It used to be runners didn't do weightlifting, didn't do any strength stuff, and now it's like science says you should.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends who were older when I worked at running stores, who are 60s now, never lifted, never doing that stuff, and now knees replaced, hips replaced. So guys who were really fit, but your body just can't take all that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helped me kind of learn, okay, there is a strength aspect you have to do.
Absolutely.
Uh,
So so you do how many Ironmans before you run into having to work your way back?
I guess it was the third one I did. I'd signed up with a friend for Ironman Wisconsin, and was training while I think this is what you were leading into, uh, while my wife and I were expecting our first kid. And I was doing a workout from Northwest Portland, go out to Sauvie Island, a loop and back, which is about 30 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal was to hit an hour and a half.
Okay.
And I was coming back from Sauvie Island, knew I was a little bit behind my goal and started pushing it. And then I could hear and see my front tire pop and explode.
Oh,
And I say to myself something, I know your show is clean, so I can't say on your show.
you can say whatever you want.
Uh, and then the next thing I remember was a fire truck, and this lady had stopped. It's called the fire truck. And I had one of those road IDs, which I swear by now, because I couldn't have remembered my wife's phone number. But
Mm-hmm.
for this lady, I could just point at it. And she called, and apparently is a woman who's 4 or 5 months pregnant. The phone
Okay.
call you don't want is, "Hey, your husband's been in a bike accident. The ambulance is on the way."
He can't speak.
Right. But yeah, this lady said she could see the tire just explode.
Oh my.
So yeah, I ended up breaking my left. I've broken my left hand twice. Once playing soccer and once riding a bike, which is not usually how people break hands. I
No.
think. Knocked myself out, cracked the frame of the bike. Um,
So you went down extremely
yeah, I
hard.
was going like 20, 25. I was probably going like 25 miles per hour
Mm-hmm.
but fortunately, this was one of those where I'd practiced falling. 'Cause, where people usually mess themselves up even more is put your arm out, and
Yeah.
naturally, that's what you wanna do. That's when people break collarbones, do all kinds of stuff.
So were you supposed to tuck the arm,
Exactly, so you kind of
take it
fall.
on the fatty part of the shoulder, or
Right,
on the muscle?
right. So my right hand was scratched up, it was the left hand that I broke. And then I swear by the helmet too. I mean, because it was cracked, and OHSU was doing a study at the time on helmets, I guess, and they wanted to keep it to do stuff. So I was like, "Well, I don't have any use for it anymore. Once it's cracked, it's done." But yeah, I swear by him now. An aside for you, in our neighborhood, one of the our daughters are 7, or 9.
N-
At the time was 7.
Yeah,
She's
8 and
9.
9. Yeah.
Uh, and one of her friends was riding a bike down the street without a helmet. And I started to stop him and tell him why helmets are so important. And his mother was, "Don't do that. You'll scare him." And I looked at the other neighbor whose house we were at. I was like, "Yeah, that's the point."
Yeah, you're supposed to scare them.
Right.
You will get extremely hurt
Right.
without it. I have been a long time supporter of wearing helmets. And when you're a kid, you don't want to wear it. You want to be cool. But the older I got, I don't care.
Right.
I ride a bike and, not of the distances that you do, but, you're climbing up these hills. There's cars coming by you. There's other obstacles. And, I've had people who are like, well, you look like a nerd.
Right.
I'm a living nerd
Yeah.
is what I look like. A one who can still read, write, and compute. So you bang that little noggin of yours one time the wrong way and you're a vegetable.
Right.
So I don't care how cool I look.
Yeah. I had a friend or her brother was a little bit, I'd gotten to know him a little bit, but even was wearing a helmet and going at 45 miles per hour down a hill, hit something, killed him instantly.
Yeah.
Like, but you're probably safe in your Peloton without a helmet.
Yeah. Well, half the time,
Right.
Rob, I'm wearing that thing. Better safe than sorry. So you fall off that thing and that kind of puts you back at ground zero on training.
Yeah, so I had to get the bike fixed, and it's a carbon frame, which historically you can't fix. Unfortunately, there are a few places in the country that can fix carbon frames and do it well. And one of them's here in Portland, Ruckus Composites. And it's fascinating what they do. They fill the frame with water, use like an ultrasound sonogram, whatever it is, to see where the cracks are,
Okay.
shave it down, put new carbon on there, paint it. It's hard to tell. If you know where exactly it was, you can tell. But I thought, as I'm leaving the hospital with a hand in a sling and, 5-month pregnant wife was very unhappy with me, I'm thinking, I got to get a new bike.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I was able to fix it. But
Nice.
yeah, I was, sitting on a recumbent bike, not how most people try to train for a triathlon or an Ironman. On a
Hmm.
recumbent bike in the gym was all I could do.
Yeah, it's something.
Right.
It's better than just kind of turning into a fossil. So you kind of get back to having better times here because when you come back faster.
Well, I was supposed to do was Ironman Wisconsin with a friend, and then realized uh, it was I think September was the race, and this was in June or July when I wrecked. It's like got a lot of training still to do and not much time.
Hmm.
Then I've got to do this recovery, so I was able to switch and do Ironman Louisville, which was I think in November, October. So it gave me like another month and a half. Uh, and that was my best race when I got there. And some of it can be conditions. That's one of the hard and great things about outdoor like marathons or just running events or triathlon is the weather you never know.
Hmm.
And in Louisville it was great. And I don't know why I had a better race there than some other races. But
Because you finished is that the one where you finished in 13 hours, 14 minutes?
I think it was like 13, 14. So my goal was under 13 hours going into Wisconsin.
Still pretty incredible.
Right. Well, and that's one of those when you finish and you retrospect and you realize, "Fort- if I just hadn't walked quite so much
Hmm.
or stopped so long in that one, on the bike, they've got a rest area or not rest area, but like aid station and then toilets every 10 miles or so. And you're kind of like, God, if I hadn't waited in that long line, that's like 2 or 3 minutes. So that's
Hmm.
kind of what's going through your head, I think, at the end. Uh,
So the toilets are there along the way, and I talked to a lady who does ultras as well, actually a friend of yours,
yeah.
Liz, and she said that if you aren't at the bathroom, you could just use the bathroom wherever. Is that frowned upon in these races compared to an ultra?
Yeah, well, so Ironman has it's interesting the different rules of different types of races. Ironman, you're not allowed to, you have to use the aid stations. You can't throw trash. Whereas like the Marine Corps Marathon in DC, as you're coming back into DC, the first part of the race is in Virginia. You're coming back into DC towards the park, Rock Creek Park, and you see it feels like hundreds of guys standing on the side of the road just peeing in the bushes. Uh, that gets you disqualified in an Ironman.
Okay, so that's where my question was. So you have to wait in the line if you've
Right.
got to pee.
Or
Uh,
pee on the bike. I that's something I can't do.
oh, so they just pee their pants on the
Yeah,
bike?
so the pros, you
They just
do it in what, 8, 9
they're not gonna
hours?
waste any minutes.
No, no.
So when they finish, they've all soiled themselves.
Probably, I would think so.
That's
Or
amazing.
maybe not be if you don't, my guess is you're not hydrated enough.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk to you about you talked about weather and how that can affect things, and I'm not sure exactly how it fits into the timeline, but I want to talk about Coeur d'Alene. The Fit for Radio podcast is brought to you by the Stafford Hills Club, and if you've never come here and taken one of their classes, you really should do so. Their instructors are really good. I took the Pilates Reformer class here, and she made me feel like I could be comfortable in the room. Let's get it right, though. I've got a lot to learn when it comes to Pilates, but that's how you do it. You just got to show up and give it your best right here at Stafford Hills. They make you feel comfortable, and it's a family environment, not just being able to bring your family here, but also the people together feel like a family. Check out everything to offer at staffordhills.com. Tell them Drew sent you for half off your initiation. Because the Coeur d'Alene situation is 106 degrees outside. Now, when you get to Coeur d'Alene, are they talking about any possibility of canceling the race? Because there must be a cap where it's dangerous. What happened in Coeur d'Alene?
Well, I thought 106 was dangerous, but obviously it wasn't their cap because they did it.
Because they kept going.
Right. It seemed like they should have. It would have been safer.
Hmm.
But when it was 106 there, I think it was like 115 in Portland.
Was that like the heat dome?
Right. That was why it
Oh,
was so hot.
where it destroyed my garden in like an afternoon.
Probably, yeah.
Just Torched it.
Right, so everybody's waiting to see 2021 was an interesting year because I did a race later that year. We're supposed to. They got atmospheric river rained out, but Coeur
Mhm.
d'Alene was so hot, yeah, we thought they're gonna cancel it, and then the morning or they say before, "We're gonna start at 6 a.m. instead of 7," hoping that in Coeur d'Alene, that out on the bike, it's high desert, kind of no tree cover, it's hot,
Mhm.
and as much as possible, we wanna get people off of the bike before it gets really, really hot. On the run, there's some shade, it's easier to stop when you're running.
Yeah.
So that was their goal is to do that, but it was oh, yeah, it was scorching, it was wild.
So what were you dealing with? So what was, the water is fine, because you get out of the water, at least the water's cooling a little bit, but the bike had to have been cooking with the asphalt and the
Right.
heat coming off of there. It's gonna multiply that heat.
Yeah, I mean, so the swim, when you're talking about those, cutoff kind of numbers, they do by temperature, whether you at a certain if it's cold enough, you have to wear a wetsuit.
Mm.
If it's a certain temperature, you can still wear a wetsuit. I think it's like 73 degrees, but your time doesn't count towards, like, winning a place.
Ah,
Or if it's a certain temperature or even a higher temperature, you're not allowed to wear a wetsuit. So that's one of the things we're all watching because 'cause you're faster with a wetsuit. You're more
okay.
buoyant, and so it's like, is it gonna be at that temperature? And I think it was not so hot that you couldn't wear it, but hot enough that you didn't officially count as you couldn't win your age group. I was like,
So did you wear it? Or
"Oh, yeah." I was like, "I'm not winning my age group. I wanna be comfortable and fast
yes.
or less slow."
Mhm.
But, yeah, the swim was okay. You get out on the bike, and I'm starting out okay, but probably, I don't know, 10, 15 miles into the bike, I'm off the side a little bit. There's rumble strip can wake you up if you're driving, you start to fall asleep, and lost my water bottle.
Oh, no.
And so, I guess it wasn't that far, it was probably 5 miles in. And so I'm thinking, I'm
Got no
getting my
water
no water, I'm screwed for the next 5 whatever miles until
until you
I
can
get
get
to
to hydration.
right, so that's when you're counting the time and you're going, "Gosh, I got, 4 miles or whatever," but I think that ultimately saved my race because it made me slow down. Because if you keep pushing
Overexertion, and you
right,
could have collapsed.
yeah, and it was, aero bars, people have the triathlon bikes where you're down because 'cause you're more aerodynamic, but you couldn't do that because it was so hot.
You had to
Just
stay up,
yeah, the heat coming off of I mean, I couldn't. The heat coming off the asphalt, it's 106 degrees outside, but then you have
like
all the heat
130 coming off the
right,
ground.
it was miserable, so you're sitting up for it, but that yeah, that was a race that was, awful. Yeah.
And so were people falling by the wayside there? How were the rest of the people in the field doing?
I mean, there were a lot of people stopping. I can't remember on the bike so much how many people stopped, but on the run, there were people getting sick. I had a buddy who, after a few times stopping and getting sick, they were like, the race officials were like, "You should really stop. This is
Mhm.
not good." I mean, in retrospect, they probably shouldn't have done the race, but I think it was 27% of starters didn't finish, which is one of the highest ever in an Ironman,
That's
just
a
'cause it's
big
so
clip.
hot.
What for you? Were you able to rally through and finish?
I did, I one of the things being less fast, I tend to make friends in a
Mhm.
race, and on the run, it makes it go faster if you're interacting with people,
Yeah.
and so there was a guy, I can't remember his name, but I remember he's from San Diego, and we walked most of the run together, and, you're sore. In this case, feet are all blistered because the fire department somehow had set up the fire hydrants, so they were like sprinklers. And people had sprinklers set outside of their house, and it's like, "This is gonna mess up my feet, it's gonna make them wet, and I'm gonna be all blistered," but it's so hot, it feels good.
Yeah, you're just like, "I'm gonna take that."
Right, so, we're walking, running most of it together. He had not done an Ironman before, so I was like, "Yeah, we gotta hit this time." This was the race when my watch died, and I was like, I knew I started before he did, and he's kinda keeping track of time for him, and I can't remember
How far
how
out ahead
ahead
you are.
yeah, so I'm like, I feel like I gotta run a little bit because 'cause I'm not gonna finish this thing at, like, 12:02 and
Mhm.
not be a finisher. But, yeah, I mean, that helped, having somebody that you're interacting with, because otherwise you're out there in the dark all by yourself. It's like hood to coast, when you're running over the mountain range and nobody's around, it's really lonesome. But here I made a couple of friends, and we finished together.
And I think if you're left to your own devices, can be dangerous. Doubt
Right.
leaks in when somebody else is there to motivate you, and you don't want to quit in front of somebody,
Right, right,
right? So, like, if you and I are running along and I'm hurting and you're kind of hurting, I'm just going to kind of keep going
right,
until I collapse.
right, and you can think and you think about it less, right? If we're talking and you're
Hmm.
learning about there ended up being a girl that stopped or joined us in the last few miles, but I think he and I probably walked crawled, struggled together for 18 miles.
And I feel like those are the things that you will remember forever. And you'll remember all of these accomplishments, but the ones that were hard and daunting and 30% of the people are falling by the wayside.
Right.
I mean, that's something cool that you'll have forever. It'd be cool to reconnect with that guy from
Yeah.
San Diego.
I can't remember what his name was, but we got to finish a shot together going through, and that was, I mean, that helped. I was like, I think I probably could have still finished. I would have been struggling more, and far
Mhm.
less or far more uncomfortable by myself.
But you got the job done. Now, when you're do you continue to do Ironmans? I see that at some point you kind of shift back to running marathons. Do you or do you continue to do both?
Well, I continued to, 'cause so we was gonna do Ironman California with this buddy who wasn't able to finish Coeur d'Alene, and we get down there, and it was another weather issue. I'd never heard of an atmospheric river.
And I
So
feel like
you
it's a
get
relatively new term.
It is, and you get down, and I got a great picture and video of, you get at the start, and they have the big neon, it's in like a baseball field, and there's this big neon sign that says, "Ironman, anything is possible."
Mhm.
And at 5 o'clock in the morning race day, they canceled the race.
Oh,
And, I mean, the wind was blowing the rain sideways. There were apparently, there was right after a drought, and so all these trees that had fallen or burned and wildfires are going down the river,
oh
and
no.
so it's just not safe, and
Yeah.
it's like, it's smart for them to cancel it, but that's hard, and I think part of the hard thing about Ironman races is you train for 1 day, and there aren't a lot of Ironman races,
You gotta wait months to get at it again.
Yeah, so if there's a 5K or 10K you're doing, they cancel one this weekend, you could find one next weekend.
Yeah.
But I ended up doing after that Ironman Texas, and that was my last Ironman for a while. Yeah, I got back to, again, with a family, it's hard at that point because by Texas, my daughter was born, my son was not yet born, and it's harder, yeah, with kids to, once
Mhm.
you're married and you have and job and everything.
Yeah, there's too much on the plate to
Yeah.
really be able to train like you would want to.
Right.
At what point do you uh it said that you ran the New York City Marathon with a friend of yours.
Well, I ran with the Team in Train, they've changed the name now. It used to be the Leukemia Society, and I think it's blood cancer or something. But Team in Training is what I had done a triathlon with in law school.
Yeah.
We raised money for cancer research. And one of my buddies, he and I had always talked, it'd be cool to run Boston at some point. But Boston, you have to either do a charity or qualify.
It's not
Yeah.
easy.
Well, no, when I was in my late 20s, when he and I were kind of first starting talking about it, early 30s, at 45, at my age now, you had to run like a 3:30 marathon. And now to qualify, you'd have to run 3:15, which still isn't fast enough. You really have to run like 3:08. And I'm not that
That's a
fast.
lot.
But we had talked about doing that. And then that friend, Colin, ended up getting diagnosed with cancer. And so I was like,
Oh,
I want to do this, raise money for Colin in his honor.
and he could no longer run with you then?
No, no, he was, I mean, I'd visit him at the hospital. It was he'd talk some about running. He'd like to talk about work. Some of my work stories are kind of entertaining. I think
Yeah.
anything that felt like normal life for him, but, as he knows that kind of this is the end's coming for me,
Mhm.
um, we would hang out, and I was like, "Well, this would be a cool thing to do in his honor." And I was talking to another buddy about who had also, we'd said, "Hey, we'd train and run and do a race." He'd moved to the East Coast. Did Ironman races. He said, I can't do anything right now. I got this stomach issue going on. I can't figure out what it is. I keep losing weight."
Kinda like a mystery diagnosis thing going on.
Yeah, he goes, "But, starting to look like a really fast runner now because I'm losing so much weight."
Mhm.
And then he was pretty quiet about it. But I found out my buddy Colin died after I did New York. Um, maybe it was right before this other friend died it was cancer as well. And so it was
Man,
like the same
double
month.
blow.
Yeah, same month, both of them. And they both were like my age, kids, same age, married roughly the same amount of time. So it was like, that could have, their stories easily could have been me.
Yeah, it's devastating to have young families and
Right.
still have the bulk of your life ahead of you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was doing it there. And then, New York is one of those races where you have to, go qualify or do charity. It's hard to get into. I think 40,000 people do it, but it's such a popular race. It's like, if
Mhm.
I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to do it.
Yeah. So you decide that you're gonna honor these guys and you're gonna raise money, right?
Right.
What is the plan there? What are you running alone? Are you did you like walk me through the plan with raising money for your buddies.
I did that. I did all the training alone. That was one of the things that the difference in the group, the team and training stuff. When I was in law school and I did it in Birmingham, there was a group of us, like 5 of us training for the race together, and that was cool, especially with
Yeah.
swim, go to do different rides and stuff. You have other people to do it with. With team and training, it's a much bigger group. I didn't know anybody so we weren't really training together.
Mhm.
And I missed that from where, you raised money together. Like we put on I think it was a dodgeball tournament or something just to raise money. So I didn't have that. So the training really wasn't much different. I mostly followed their training, but I had learned some over the years and asking friends who were coaches or better runners than I am, like training plans and running plans. So
Mhm.
I used their training plan a little bit, not a ton.
I guess so. Like with with your two friends passing away, I think it's really commendable. Also, that a lot of people fall into grief and to let that consume them. And well, I've lost some really good friends too, way too early, and I think a good way to mourn is to honor them.
Right.
And from the time that I've known you, it seems like you've always got some sort of a charitable angle that you're working. You're always trying to like raise money, like even Super Bowl squares. You're always got
Right.
something where you're trying to do something good. Um, but you weren't done dealing with adversity, right?
No, so I decided, and I think when I first decided to do New York and raise money with team and training, I knew Colin was sick. And that
Mhm.
was kind of my parents who were back and my sister are all on the East Coast kind of encouraged me and gave me some money and helped with it. But then once Colin died and then my other friend Mark died, both of whom were friends, didn't know each other, but I separately running friends who we talked about training for
Mhm.
that are qualifying for Boston or something
Yeah.
like that. I decided to try to do it again. Um, and Boston was kind of my thought, but then talking to other running buddies and friends who were like, London is awesome.
Mhm.
Like Boston, everybody wants to do Boston because it's Boston. But they're like, Boston, you start, you finish in like office building complexes and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, London, you finish at a castle. Or
Mhm.
New York, you finish in Central Park. Or Berlin, you finish at the Brandenburg Gate. So again, you can make it a little vacation too to go. My wife
Oh
is
yeah.
going to go with me. So
London is a
yeah.
is a special place.
So yeah, we're gonna do London with a different group. It's called Haymakers for Hope. But the same idea, raising money. Signed up with that. My parents were supporting that. And then yeah, in last July, my dad called my sister and me, and was telling us he had a number of health issues and they weren't sure what it was, and said that the doctors, on that official diagnosis, were saying he had multiple myeloma, which is a blood cancer.
Oh my.
So, and he told us, uh, my dad and I don't tend to be the most emotional, like outwardly emotional usually. It kind of looks like you're not necessarily into things. At least historically, that's been
Yeah,
true.
it could be crushing you on the
Right.
inside, but you're not showing it
Right.
outwardly.
That's changed as I've gotten older, but
Yeah.
historically, that was kind of the way
We
it was.
become more sensitive with time, and
Right.
it's hard. By the time you're an 85-year-old man, you cry at everything,
Right.
but you're only halfway there
Yeah.
right now.
So he's saying, in the car, but I'm actually driving home, um, and I had it on, they did FaceTime. So sitting there, but I'm paying attention to the
Focusing.
road. And he said, but, I've had a good life. You guys, my sister, Amy, who's 2 years older than I am, I've had a good life. You all have been a big part of that. He's ready to go essentially. It's like, I don't want to do one of the things I didn't realize with cancer, especially blood cancers, the cancer uses so much of the sugar and everything in your bodies. A lot of people that go through dialysis,
Hmm.
which I've learned is horrible.
Yeah.
And he's like, at age, I don't want to do dialysis. I don't want to have to go through that stuff.
So did he in that initial phone call, he's basically telling you he's okay with all
He's
this? And
okay with, I mean, he accomplished a lot. One of the things that has been special for me to be able to continue on is for decades, my dad has been he made up these stories about this character, Old Joe Grady, and he was trying to get this book published. I remember when I was in college, I got it bound because I had to get my thesis bound and
Mhm.
wrote a little forward for it and saying, well, Harry Potter, it's about this kid on a broomstick. Why wouldn't somebody want to publish this book? Well, in June, a month and a half maybe before he got really sick, and then what you're kind of leading into, my father ended up dying a few weeks after he told us that he might have cancer. he signed a contract to publish his book. And so it's like, he's not going to get to see it in print, but
Mhm.
the accomplishment of, I've been doing this and working on this in retirement. He'd sit outside with his dog, his chocolate lab, sitting next to him and work on the book. So it's like he'd accomplished all this stuff, but he was at peace.
And it's really cool to keep that legacy going, and when you can get that totally completed, that his name living on the cover of that book is
Right.
important, right?
Right.
That's forever. I can only imagine, what was going through your head, and I know you said you're not the most outwardly emotional person, but for me, if I heard that from my dad, who is, like my hero, and he's my handyman when I can't do it, and he's my confidant, and he's my, one of my greatest supporters, to not be, I feel like you got blindsided.
Right.
It's like 3 weeks is no time to say goodbye.
No, I mean, and he noticed I was starting to get emotional in the car on the drive, and we thought it's a not a I don't think it's a curable, but it's a treatable cancer. And
Mhm.
so we thought, he's gonna
Some
have to go through
time.
all this treat exactly. But then I think it was a week, maybe after that, my sister called me and said, "Mom can't get dad to wake up." Um, and she went to they live in North Carolina in the same city in Raleigh. She went, I could hear them like talking to the EMTs and all this stuff. And the EMTs thought was just his blood sugar was low, but he still wasn't waking up. And so I asked my sister, I said, "Is it really that? Should I book a flight? Should I come home?" She goes, "Yeah." So I flew out that night.
And I remember because it was during soccer, and I'm sorry to drum this stuff up because I know it's emotional, but my heart was breaking for you because I knew what you were going through, and you are a strong guy. You would come there to soccer, and you would talk almost like you were speaking about someone else, but I know how important your dad
Right.
is, and my heart breaks for you that you didn't get a chance to say goodbye, because and I don't know if you did, but it feels like when you still think you have some time
Right.
and he's kind of sugarcoating it to protect you guys. And then inevitably that happens. It's got to be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. And then you're at the hospital and the doctors, don't want to give you false hope, but also hope that, hey, we're trying to get him to wake up or do all these different things. And so you start looking at the machines thinking, oh, his blood pressure is going up or down or whatever it's
Little
going.
hope
Yeah.
blips.
But nothing. And I mean, one of the hardest decisions, but also easiest decisions I've ever had to be a part of was they said after 14 days, if we can't get him to wake up, we'll have to do a tracheotomy. And my mom, my sister, and my mom wanted my sister, we were like, "Mom, this is your decision to make."
Yeah.
She said, "No, I want you and Amy part of it. I want you to be there and help make this decision." And it's one of the easiest because we were all like, "You wouldn't want that." And it's one of the hardest because you're ultimately saying, he's going to die.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, I mean, that was hard. Fortunately, I was able to be back for that. Um, and kind of a little bit funny story. My dad had a beard most of my life. Twice I've seen him without a beard. Once I was in summer camp at the college where he taught, and he was playing an admiral in Navy and had to shave his beard to look like an admiral in the Navy. I didn't recognize him. And then at the hospital, all the machines and stuff, the tubes weren't staying like they're supposed to. And so they shaved him, and I walked in the room and walked out at first because I didn't recognize him. But fortunately, I was able to be back for that. My flight was delayed out of Portland. I was
Oh,
taking
you're
my
just
daughter back
tapping
with
your
me.
foot.
And it's like, I'm usually pretty calm about that kind of stuff, but I
Not
was
this
like,
time.
I have to get to North Carolina.
Hmm.
I can't. And so they had to rebook me a number of different ways. And I had my daughter with me. We didn't take her to the hospital. She wanted to see Papa. And I said,
Hmm.
no, I don't want her to see him like that or to take a, because she'd always comment about Papa and his beard. If she drinks milk, it's a little mustache. Look, I'm Papa.
Hmm.
So she was able to stay with some friends. But yeah, I mean, having to go there and be a part of it was like, yeah,
It's tough. I think you made the right decision, though. My dad has this thing, where, and he talks to us about it because my mom won't listen to it because she's like, "I'm going to keep you here no matter what." And I think part of it is she doesn't want to be alone. They've been together their entire lives since they were like 10. It's crazy, but he says to me all the time, "Don't leave me in a room like that where I'm just inching along. If I'm miserable, set me free.
Right.
You know, don't have me hate my life because you need me here."
Yeah.
And that's tough to hear because, forever I was like, "Shut up.
Right.
We're gonna do whatever we want to keep you here, but that's not my call."
Yeah. No, and it was 'cause he wouldn't have been able to, because he would have had me doing treatment, had to be in rehab, and it's like, he wouldn't be able to see the grand, or at least play with the grandkids. So it's like
Mhm.
he liked to do box sports with the kids
Yeah.
or water gun fights or dance competitions. He wouldn't be able to do any of that stuff. And he didn't want he was I think he was really, really afraid. I almost said deathly afraid, but really, really afraid of not being all there when he passed.
Yeah.
But like getting Alzheimer's or anything like that. He told me once he started to get into learning in retirement, he started learning Spanish. And he said, I want to keep my mind fresh and I hate crosswords. But he was working on his book up until the night he wouldn't wake up. And so it's like his mind was still there. So that's good. He got to go his way.
Doing what he loved,
Right.
and you're keeping that legacy alive. You're working on finishing up that book. And so I think that's really cool that you're keeping the legacy going there, but you're not stopping at that. You have a bigger plan. And I want to discuss what you're doing to honor your dad. The Fit for Radio podcast is brought to you by the Stafford Hills Club. And when you come here, you will notice the difference. The sense of community is amazing. People smiling, happy. They hold the door for you around here. And of course, it's one of those clubs that when you sign up, they want you to come back. They want you to be happy and healthy because then we can all be together for a long time. Check out all the amenities and everything they have to offer at staffordhills.com. Tell them Drew sent you and get half off your initiation.
Yeah, so much like, team and training when I did New York, I'd already, before my dad got sick, signed up to do the London Marathon with a group called Haymakers for Hope, which doesn't seem to make much sense for a running group.
Yeah,
But
how'd that come about?
well, I did a bunch of research, about doing London, and different organizations. There's team and training, but other different groups, and one of the things I liked about Haymakers for Hope, so it started out, they're based in Boston, but it started out as a boxing thing,
Okay.
raising money. So since
That
they have
haymakers
right.
makes sense there.
But one of the things that they do a lot that I liked about it was what they call survivorship. And so they would do these boxing events and help cancer survivors train and do, so they've got something else to do. But it also raises money. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but the vast majority of the money goes to cancer research, helps supporting families, the survivorship kind of aspects. And so that really fit when I signed up initially was for my friends Colin and Mark,
Mhm.
who had passed away. And then again, my dad and mom were really supportive of it. But then when he died, it was like another person, kind of the cancer.
Kind of pushes it into hyperdrive
Right,
here.
right. So even more so kind of wanna accomplish that, for him. And my dad, one of the things on the fundraising page I gotta do, I took from his book, a perfect line that I also used in his eulogy, which was, "The character wants to stay alive until he dies. He doesn't wanna just survive. He wants to experience life. He wants to stay alive and truly live it, not just be there. And he wants to live life like a kid." And I said, "That was my dad at 82 years old, water gun fights with my kids, box forts." And so I wanna really push that.
Mhm.
And that's kind of been part of
That's cool.
the idea behind it.
It's amazing. And, it's so much, it reminds me of my dad so much wanting to live and not be alive. And I'm going to take that away with me. Now, you're going to try and raise $10,000 for cancer research. That's the goal.
Right, $10,000 is what my goal is with Haymakers for Hope.
Okay.
Anything above that's great, but that's my minimum I need to raise.
So we're going to try and move the needle on that. We're going to put a link to where people can donate and they can support. And I invite people to share and to kind of, get your story out there. And that's why I wanted to get you on now because it's super important. We're on a limited time scale in order to raise that money. And of course, raising the money at any point is all going for good. But we want to help Rob achieve his goal, honor his friends and his dad, who I'm sure would be extremely proud of not just the man that you are, the legacy that you're carrying, but and the father that you are that I see all the time. But the fact that you care enough about other people to do this and to raise this money, and it's commendable.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I looked this morning, actually, a retired sheriff's deputy who I I got to be friends with and can joke with,
Mhm.
who actually coincidentally had stomach cancer surgery, and he's okay now, but he donated some today, so I'm at a little over 9,000, so I'm $1,000
Oh,
short.
you're getting
So
close
I'm getting
here. Well,
close.
then let's shatter that goal and go well over because it's not gonna stop you at 10, right? Like,
Right,
you
no,
raise whatever you can.
go to whatever you can, but
That's
I've
awesome.
gotta get at least to 10,000, so it's a 9,081 or something I saw this morning when I looked, so I'm getting close.
Yeah, and it's all a write-off. So go ahead and donate and do something good, and, it's nice. I think I am a big supporter of charity, of course, but I love something that is, that you can actually see that's gonna go towards a certain type of a deal to help people and not just some ambiguous fund. So Haymakers for Hope, like I said, we'll have the link right there for you. Now, um, I think there's some key takeaways from you, and one of them is, and this is a compliment, not a diss, but that you don't have to be extraordinary to do amazing things, right? Like you can, and I'll use myself as the example first and foremost, and you can piggyback along if you want. When I say I'm born painfully average, but I have accomplished some things physically that other people don't do, and it's just from pure determination.
Yeah, I
It's
think you're right.
just from refusing to quit and maybe, ignorance to pain and things like that, which you have to have in order to do things that you don't think you're capable of, but I think you are an example of that. Would you agree that part of the reason you're able to do all these things is resilience and drive, or is it, just the LeBron James inside of you?
No, I mean, it's the passion for I mean, for me, starting out and always doing something active, whether it's running or biking, is discover it's a good kind of out for me as far as, my job can be stressful at times, and
As
a
a
lot
criminal defense attorney, I'm guessing there is stress and anxiety and everything in there.
and so that gives me kind of an outlet to relieve that so you're not taking it out on your family.
Mhm.
Uh, but the I yeah, it's being able to accomplish a goal, being able to get to a certain thing, and then just I mean, maybe almost hard-headedness, because 'cause I've hit those points in races where it's like, "Gosh, I don't know, it's a long way to go." Or I did one of
Mhm.
these high rocks kind of endurance, physical strength things, and I struggled at the very last event, and it's like, I've already done all these other things, and it's hard, but I'm gonna finish this whether it takes me forever or not. I think most people do it in, like, 5 to 7 minutes, this last event. It took me 20.
Mhm.
I kept hitting the women's thing at 8 feet, not the men's at 10, but it's like, I'm gonna get there. I wanna finish it. I wanna do it. And that I mean, I think that has less to do with athletic ability than just mental. And a
Mhm.
lot of it like for a marathon, most people don't run a full marathon to train. You run 18, 20 miles, and from there, it's all mental, and I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of it is that most people could accomplish it if they have the mental ability, the drive to do it. It's not about the physical. Somebody told me one time, an Ironman especially, it's not about who's fastest, it's who slows down the least. And I think for most people, too, in that kind of thing is it's not, you don't have to win to be impressive. You don't have to win for people to chat with you and talk with you and say congrats. It's about, hey, you did it.
Mhm.
And that's cool.
And belief is such a strong thing, to believe that you can do it.
Right.
And even, and sometimes I even say this, that even if I seem dumb in thinking that I can, that's what drives me to pull it off.
Right.
Because if I use like actual brain power and any lick of intelligence I have left, I'm probably gonna talk myself out of it.
Right.
But just that, no, I can do that because I'm just not gonna stop. Well, if my legs fall over, or like back to the push-up thing, when my body started to like go into a full-blown like seize, yeah, I'd run out of time, I'd run out of
Right.
power, but you believe until the moment you can't that you can.
Right. But I think it's for me also, it's the humbling moments that help. The doggy paddling, a swim where, you can't, it's hard to stop in the middle of a swim. You can go over and get help from a boat or something like that. It's, well, if I can finish a swim doggy paddling, then, it can't get much worse.
Yeah.
I can only go up. Or, a guy in a firefighter's uniform and an 82-year-old nun pass me or finish about the same time I do, should be able to figure out how to do this.
Oh,
So I
absolutely.
think that helps. The humbling moments make you stronger, and I think that helps also mentally, especially, to go, okay, I can do.
Yeah, because you don't ever learn as much or even remember as much when it goes smoothly.
Right.
It's you remember the bike crash, you remember the high heat, you remember the doggy paddle, because those are when, okay, now I'm being tested.
Right.
Now this is what has Rob got on, what's fifth gear where I just turn it that last notch to get there. And I think a lot of people don't believe they have that, but they do.
Yeah. I think it's so important that you have to experience that. That's why I think, especially with our girls soccer, they're not the best team a lot of the times.
Hmm.
It's like you have to learn how to lose. You have to learn adversity and how to move on from it. I think that's so important. If you win every game, there's only one person that's going to be the best in every event, all the time.
Hmm.
And you got to learn how to still succeed even when you don't win.
Yeah. And to come back next time with the belief that you could win.
Right.
Because even if you get drummed 10-0, I don't drive Josie, my daughter, to soccer the next week and say, "Remember, we got drummed by 10, so
Right.
just be ready for it." No, on the way there, you make them believe that they're going to win this one.
Right.
And if you don't, then you learn that lesson and you walk through it there that way. But come in every time, not just hungry, but with the belief that you're going to come away victorious.
Right.
And, you hope that that rubs off on them and then their kids. And then one day I'm making box forts
Right.
with them and water gun fights and the whole deal. And it all comes full circle. And I've had the privilege of being around you and your family and you're great people. You're raising great kids. Um, and you're finding a way to balance, these amazing like athletic feats with being a criminal defense attorney and a good parent. So it's commendable. And I think that your mom and dad are proud of that. They think that they've raised a good man.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important thing for me, I think, is the humility, being humble about stuff. But also recognizing that, people look at runners or things like that, and anybody could do it if you really want to. And it doesn't take, again, there's only one person that's the fastest.
Hmm.
There's only one person that's the strongest. Can you find joy in it not being the fastest? Can you, get better as a person or just in general in lifestyle? I mean, those to me are the important things. You don't have to
And
win.
and your personal victory.
Right.
Like you don't have to be first across the finish line to win. If you're running a triathlon or an Ironman and you finish, like, to me, from someone who's never done that, that's amazing. Like, that in itself is incredible, and, when you chase big things, sometimes you don't see that
Right.
because 'cause you're like, "No, but I wanted this time. Oh, I wanted the world record in push-ups." And I remember my whole family was here, like, trying to help me stay cool, stay hydrated, and my dad had bruised thumbs from holding doing
Yeah.
the clicker, and they told me afterwards, they're like, "Stop. Look at your number.
Right.
Like, that's an incredible number. It's not the world record. You didn't win the record, but you won."
Right.
And it's tough sometimes to see that, but I think it's about keeping your goals in perspective and realizing that on a grand scale, that might be amazing
Right.
in itself, and don't be so hard on yourself about it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it was an ad or something not long ago where it's like, 15-minute miles is, that's moving and it's not an 11-minute mile, all these things. But a 15-minute mile is a lot more and a lot faster than 90 whatever percent of the people in the world do.
Exactly.
So it's just, your own personal accomplishments, you're getting there and being happy with what you accomplished. To
Mhm.
me, that's what's important. It doesn't have to compare to, oh, this other person. It's good to have that with friends, that little competitive, hey, I want to beat this friend, or he's not going to run more miles than I am, or whatever it is, or do more push-ups than I do. But it's being happy with, hey, I accomplished this goal. That's good enough.
And I'll give you, as we're wrapping up here, I'll give you my running thing that kind of associates to this. So in middle school, I had a friend who was a cross country runner, and his dad convinced me to go to some cross country races with them and just like run. And those were a little sketchy, but I also used to run the 1,500 meters in middle school. And I was not the fastest guy, but I had managed to slip in. And I think maybe one of the guys had gotten hurt or something. I was managed to slip in to districts in the
Right.
1,500 meters. And I was like, "Okay, well, this is huge." We got there, and I got lapped by the guy who won it. It's 4 laps,
Right.
and he lapped me. And I think it was a lap and a half by the time he finished. And it was the last distance race I ever ran. And at the time, I was like humiliated. But as I got older and like even just a few years older, I made it to districts in the 1,500 meters, and nobody else was doing that. And now I wasn't overly talented or anything, but I had run it fast enough to get to districts. And so as I got older, that was the accomplishment, not getting lapped by that dude
Right.
who crushed, and he probably went on to like D1 sports.
Right.
But I remember being so humbled and then realizing that the accomplishment wasn't me trying to win state. That wasn't going to happen. But the accomplishment was I went from a guy who didn't run at all to making districts.
Right.
And so it's really about keeping things in perspective and knowing that your best, a lot of times, if you just take a breath, is good enough.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that people, one more time, don't forget to go and donate to Haymakers for Hope. And let's get Rob Crow well over that $10,000 and honor your buddies, honor your dad, and everybody else who's fought cancer, this brutal, brutal thing that we all hate so much. And I can't thank you enough for coming in here. And you're so busy, you're going to go put on a suit and go to court after this.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for taking the time, and good luck in there with the judge.
All right. Thanks, Drew.
All right, you're the man. Cheers.